Hello, I am Pastor Chris Boone, and welcome to People of Venture. Right now I have one of my favorite couples, Heather and Daryl, and we're going to be interviewing them, just talking about marriages right now, because you're stuck at home with each other more than you typically are. And so we're going to be giving you advice about that. But right now I just want you to just talk about your family, how long you've been married.
Daryl and Heather Taylor. We have 4 adult children, and we've been married for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. And you're grandparents now.
Yay!
And brand new grandparents, yes.
Yeah,
As of
in
March
the middle
10th.
of all of this, and now they're telling you can't go see your grandbaby. So
Yeah.
that's kind of
hard.
rough.
Yeah. FaceTime will come in handy.
Yep. So I feel like that this is a topic that's desperately needed. Like I said, you have walked a lot of couples through pre-marriage counseling. You walked Maggie and me through
You were our
pre-marriage
first
counseling.
couple.
Were we?
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Okay. Well, that makes sense now. Advice that you gave me probably wasn't. No, I'm joking. But how would you encourage couples right now through this time? It's high stress, a lot of unknowns. What can couples be doing right now to better their marriage through this time?
Mm-hmm.
I think first and foremost, whether you're working more because of what's going on or you're stuck at home together as a family, take advantage of this time. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got extra time, so use it wisely.
Yeah, I had to rearrange how I was thinking about this because I'm really struggling not being able to be face-to-face with people. I get a lot of energy about, with being around people. And I really felt like my freedom was taken away. And so being able to look at this as an opportunity rather than something being taken away or being put on restriction, I feel like I'm being given an opportunity. And so I don't want to look back after this is over and go, man, I did not use that time wisely. So I'm really trying to each morning get up and think, what can I do to, enhance our time together? What can I do exercise-wise? What can I do to improve my mind? But trying to just kind of figure out what can we do to enjoy this time that we have, because eventually we're both going to be back in the workforce and we won't have this prolonged time together. And I think we'll look back and think, man, I wish we could do that again.
Yeah. I think about when I first got married with Maggie, I wasn't intentional with my time with her. Because it was like, oh, we're both home now. We're not dating. We're both home. And so we're just hanging out. So it wasn't until like 5 months in, it was like, no, you still need to go on dates. You still need to do this. How are you intentional with this time now? Like, you don't have date nights, obviously. So you have date nights in. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think you really need to have a plan and a routine for each day. And it may change each day, but really have an idea of what you guys want to do and what you want to accomplish, not just as a couple, but also as a family. If you've got kids at home, they're feeling just as much tension as you guys are as a couple. So, get out, exercise together, walk around the block.
Yeah.
Read to your kids.
Read to your kids. Spend time with your kids. Spend time with your kids together as a couple. And, watch movies together. You can make dinner together. There's a lot of things you can do around the house that you're not used to doing. Get them out in the yard. Work. It's springtime, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's out mowing their grass. Show your kids how to mow the grass, right? It's homeschooling 101 right there.
But I think you also have to have the mindset that you are not going to do it in a time-efficient manner if you're teaching kids, or even if you're teaching each other how to do something. Mm-hmm. You have to be patient and know that it's going to be a process, and just be okay with it's not going to be perfect and it might not be efficient, but at least you're passing something on as far as knowledge, but you're also spending time together.
Yeah, there's no hurry.
No, that's really good, because I'm like, okay, we got to do this, and with my kids, it takes a little bit longer. Let's talk about fighting for a second. Couples have built up really bad, habits, when it comes to fighting. I know some couples, and you kind of want to get away, so it's like, I'm getting in my car, I'm driving away, I'm going. Now you're locked in this. Like, there's nowhere to drive to. What are healthy habits in fighting? What are things that people can do when they have disagreements or they push each other's buttons or something like that? What advice or encouragement would you give through that?
I think you always have to stay calm. I mean, you really have to, and if you're not in a calm place, the house is big enough, maybe you have to go out to the garage, maybe you have to go outside for a little while, but you really have to keep a cool head. And I think one thing what you have to do is you have to imagine, would I want to fight in front of Pastor Brandon or Pastor Di? Would they want to hear this conversation? Think of it that way, and what your kids might be hearing, or what your spouse is hearing from you too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cute, coming from a nice, calm guy. You can't always stay calm. So let's just be honest. There's going to be times where it's going to escalate. And I think even right now, it is really difficult to stay calm because you hear all the stuff on the news. You start getting in that mentality of, I can't do this, I can't do that. And I had a day last week where I was so upset and I spontaneously cried because I just was so frustrated with what I perceived to have taken away from me. And if he had told me to calm down, I probably would have punched him. But I think what I had to figure out was it's okay for me to feel this way. It's natural for me to feel this way. And then acknowledge that I'm feeling this way and not shame myself. Or, if it's a spouse who's feeling this way, don't shame them. But then give yourself an opportunity to take a time out. I went out, I walked my dogs. I didn't feel like walking my dogs, but I just felt like if I could go outside, it would make me feel better. And I also went and stuck my headphones in and just listened to worship music. Even though I didn't feel like listening to worship music, I just thought if something can feed my spirit, then I will start to feel better. And then I just had to start replacing all the negative thoughts that I had with positive thoughts. And even though I didn't necessarily believe them right off the bat, as I continually did that discipline, I came back from my walk and I just felt better. And I think I was able to be a much more enjoyable person to live with. So yeah, it's hard. So, trying to stay calm it's a hard thing to do.
Now, what advice would you give me to help you out with that? Like in that time, just to give you space? Is it, hey, doing the dishes? What is it that you would, what is something Daryl could have done in that moment that would help him out?
He did a good job. He actually said, why don't you go out for a run, or why don't you go and do that? He gave me the space. He did say go out for a run, and I was like, I don't want to go for a run. I just responded. And so he backed off. He did. He just gave me space, and he also acknowledged that what I was feeling was really frustrating. He's not an extrovert, and so he couldn't understand necessarily what I was going through, but he acknowledged that I was going through it, and he was sympathetic with that. And so he, was just trying to be loving and, encouraged me, used my love language, did the things that I needed him to do just to be a support, because he couldn't fix it.
Mm-hmm. Your faith plays such a big part in your marriage. Encourage other couples with their faith. What are steps that you took to get to where you are now with your faith in your marriage?
Obviously Sunday mornings, go to church together. I mean, we can still attend church together online. Mm-hmm. We've got all these different podcasts. There's all sorts of opportunities to still, go to church together. But what I really encourage all the guys to do, and all the men in the families, is pray with your spouse. Take this time. We've got 2 weeks now. We all know that if you do something for 2 weeks, it creates a routine. Start praying with your wife. Start praying with your family, and work through these challenging times and pray to God. I mean, I don't know why we would want to pray to God just on our own when we can have our spouse right there, and encourage the spouses to pray together and really seek after God in any of the challenges you might be having, but also just so you can use this time wisely. And when we get through it, that God will have blessed us.
Yeah.
But I think you also can't think that can replace your individual time with God. Mm-hmm. You still have to get up in the morning, or, if you do it in the evening, I guess it doesn't really matter when you do it, but you still need that intentional time focusing your heart and your personal relationship with Him, because then if you two come together and pray together, that's just an added bonus. But we can't throw out, our individual time with Him too.
Yeah, we always say in pre-marriage, 2 healthy relationships create a healthy marriage, and I think that's the same way with your relationship with God. You have to each have a healthy relationship with God individually to have a healthy relationship together with God.
That's so good. It can't be dependent on the other person carrying that, and that you both have to. I say that unequally yoked can sometimes be the one person, has their house built on the rock and the other person has their house built on the sand.
Yep.
Like they both need to have their house built on the rock. And so that's really, really good. Stress is high right now, and sometimes it can bring out the worst in people. They make bad decisions. What can you help to bring down those tensions of stress, of high stress? Remember, let's keep this a little PG. But what are things that couples can do in their household to, kind of alleviate that stress?
Okay, well, after the lock on the bedroom door,
Okay.
I would say good communication. We're going to be spending a lot of time with your spouse and your family. And just because you talk a lot doesn't mean you're not communicating well. So make sure you guys are having that time together where you're just communicating with each other, you're talking with each other, you're not distracted by the TV or the computer or whatever else might be going on. And then, I don't know, what are your thoughts?
One of the things I've noticed that we have had in our marriage is we're considerate of one another, and that hasn't always been something I've been able to see in other marriages. And I realized when I saw how other couples were not necessarily considerate, and I mean like in the way they spoke to each other, or if they run into each other, they don't say excuse me, or they don't treat each other very well, and they take each other for granted. And when people have asked, what's something in our marriage that we think has been really helpful, I always bring that up because we're pretty considerate of one another. So little things, I think I've shared this with a lot of couples in pre-marriage. When I sneeze, I love the fact that Daryl always says, bless you. And so that's just something we do. Yeah, is it an extra silly thing that maybe we do? Maybe people would see that, but what I see it as, he's always aware of what's going on with me. I'm always paying attention where he is, and so if he sneezes, I say bless you. If there's something that I can do that's going to help him, like carry his shoes up the stairs that might be sitting on the stairway to be taken upstairs, I'll take those. Yesterday he said, "Did you clean the kitchen for me? Because he fixed dinner," and I go, "Yeah," and he goes, "Thanks." He thanked me for that. I didn't even say thank you for dinner. Thanks for dinner. Just little things like that. Treating your spouse the way you would treat maybe your best friend, because let's be honest, they should be your best friend.
Yeah. No, that's really, really good.
I think another thing that's important right now is, that's going to create some tension is people's finances. We have some people that are not working, take advantage of the time that you're not working, but also some people are working even more. But the people that aren't working, that maybe went from 2 jobs down to 1 job or no jobs in the house, that's going to create some tension. And I just want to encourage people, cut back on your spending. There's different things that you can do, but just trust in God that He's going to take care of you.
Yeah.
But spend what money you do have coming in wisely, and that's about it. That's all you can do is you can just trust in God that He's going to get you through this. This is just going to be for a season of our lives. And hopefully it's a short season, but it may be longer than we expect. And we just need to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Be smart.
That's really good. Last thing, you brought some books, and so as resources for couples out there. And so can you just talk about those real quick?
When we knew that we were going to do this, I thought, wow, people have time now on their hands. And I think in a time when we don't always have discretionary time, we don't think about these things, but now that we do, there are a couple books I would recommend. The first one is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's a great book because you can be a student of your spouse and you can learn what their love language is. And when you can speak their love language, that makes them feel so appreciated, and you are, banking emotional currency and, kind of insulating your marriage so that when you do hit tough times and have some anxieties, you've insulated it. And then another one that I just recently discovered is The 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. Such a great book because it gives you exercises that you can do with your spouse, like certain questions you can ask your spouse, things that you wouldn't necessarily ask them in just the routine day. Simple things like, where do you see our lives together in 5 years? If you could change one thing about about your personality? What would you change? And when you ask each other open-ended questions like that, you start to learn things that you might not have known about your spouse, which just makes them more interesting and then creates a really fun dynamic between you when you're stuck at home for a few weeks together.
Oh, that's really good. We always like to end our time with hope. And so what would you tell a couple that you're counseling that is going through a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, a lot of unknown uncertainty? What's a piece of advice of hope that you would give those couples right now?
Once again, our normal life now is not the way it's always going to be. This is just a season. We're gonna get through this, and I think you just have to make sure that you recognize that however big of a miracle that you need in your life right now, that just allows God to do something even greater. Mm-hmm. So I think we're all a little bit stressed out. Things are not as normal, but just realize that God's got a bigger plan, and Jesus wins.
Yeah, and this is an opportunity for our faith to grow. This isn't an opportunity that we are in control of. So we really do have to kind of let go and let God. And I know that sounds maybe kind of trite when you're really struggling, but it also is a challenge, to move towards your spouse, move in towards your spouse. Take the opportunity to spend time with one another so that when this is over, you're in a better position. But yeah, just know that the efforts that you're making, God's going to bless, because He is for marriage. He created marriage. Mm-hmm. And if you're taking the steps and you're doing the uncomfortable confrontations, but you're putting out the energy to improve your relationship, He's going to bless that. Mm-hmm. And so, just know that the end of this time could be a time where you can really vastly improve the relationship that might not have been addressed had we not had this virus thing.
Yeah, that's so good. So many people are focused on how do I work on me during this time, but I was hoping through this that people would step back and go, okay, how am I working on my marriage at this time? Mm-hmm. So thank you so much. As always, I hope that this encouraged you. I hope that this brightened up your day, and have a good evening. Thank you.